I think there are three big lessons from this. The first is that we tend to neglect these non-aid policies. At a discussion like this here at the European Development Days, people tend to talk a lot about aid, about securing and sustaining increases in the aid budget. Why? In part because the organisations represented here depend on aid budgets, and so it becomes important for them to think a lot about defending that aid spending. The second message is that in these other areas, we in Europe are not doing as well as we should be doing, that we tend to congratulate ourselves on being development friendly, but we tend, I think, to focus more on the symptoms of poverty, of giving aid to reduce the symptoms and the hardship of poverty, but not doing enough to address the causes of poverty, to address the structural inequalities in the global system that lead to the persistence of poverty around the world. But the third and the most positive finding is that when we look in detail at the index, we find that some countries do particularly well in particular areas and some countries do particularly badly. So neighbouring countries, Norway and Sweden, for example, who both do very well in the index overall, they come third and second respectively. Although they do well overall, Norway comes top of the security component, and Sweden comes last in the security component. And the reason for that is that Sweden has a high level of arms sales to poor and undemocratic countries, and Norway doesn't. And Norway makes big contributions to UN peacekeeping and other kinds of international operation. But then equally, Norway comes bottom of the trade component because they have a high level of agricultural subsidies to protect their farmers from imports from abroad. So what we can look at is how individual countries within Europe and beyond score highly, and whether we could, whether other countries could learn lessons from that and improve their own performance. South Korea, for example, does very well on technology transfer. That's enabling poor countries to use technologies that have been developed in richer countries. Now, South Korea has a very thriving, very innovative manufacturing industry. Their intellectual property rules don't seem to be hindering their own ability to innovate or to develop those products commercially. So maybe the rest of us could learn from South Korea's success in technology transfer, and the UK, my own country, which does very badly on this measure, we come in 20th out of 27, maybe we could improve our technology transfer intellectual property policies up to the level of South Korea. That would make a big difference to our impact on the developing world. Now, you can't talk about these things in a generic way, of policy coherence for development. You have to look at the specific details of the migration policies, the environment policies. What are the lessons that we can learn from countries that do it well, and how could the rest of us emulate those successes and change our own policy environment? So there's a huge amount of detail here for us to learn from as we identify best practice and try to spread it.